Well, that's how you want good T20 games to be. Just go right down till the end, both teams in play, any result possible, and then just one pipping the other to the post. And if you're an England fan, you're thinking, geez, that was close. It was so close. But in the end, there was one man standing in the middle of them in victory, and that man was Tilak Varma. What a brilliant knock. 72 of 55, but more importantly, that asterisk 72 not out, so ensuring that he took India across the rope. There were wickets falling on the other end, but he stood still, he stuck firm right till the end and got India home. And India leads this series 2-0 now with 2 wickets to spare today's win and just 4 balls in hand. So it went down to the last over. This is Cricbuzz Live. Michael Vaughan, Zaheer Khan, I'm Gaurav Kapur. And this match went down to the... Zach, what's that thing between two electricity poles? What's that thing?
Went down to the wire.
A wire, that's right, a wire. That's the one.
Individual brilliance seals the game.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah, Tilak was just superb.
Tilak was absolutely superb. And that's the good thing, right? Michael, when you look at it, I mean, first, I'll get your reaction on Tilak later, but first, for England, they'll be proud because they did well. They took it in the end. Well, you got to feel a little sad that they couldn't kind of cross the T's and dot the I's.
Yeah, I mean, they played a lot better than they did in the first game, which is obviously an improvement. You know, you look at that drop catch from Adil Rashid, that's a big play in the game. And also, I'll keep going back to it. The pace on's not going to work in India. 6 overs of spin was bowled by Adil Rashid and Liam Livingstone. It went for 28. Pretty much where it's been lost for England. They need to get Ray and Ahmed in the team. They need to take pace off a little bit more. The effort's there, the kind of entertainment factor's there when they're trying to bowl rockets. But on Indian wickets, you know, you see the ball just keep flying over the keeper's head for 6, little flicks into the stand for 6. You can't allow the Indian batters such a freedom to hit the quick bowling. So a better performance, but I think in terms of the tactics, I would want England to change slightly for the next game, just to bring a little bit more spin into the equation.
Yeah, I think we were all surprised that they didn't do that in this game itself. I did see Rehan Ahmed on the field, but as a substitute fielder, that's not how they need to get him on the park, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Rayhan, and he's a wonderful young talent. You're looking at the way that Adil Rashid bowls. Clearly, if Rayhan plays, I think India would attack a younger bowler. They have a huge amount of respect for Adil Rashid and almost try and see him out, particularly on that kind of surface. But, you know, pace on the ball, I mean, Zach will tell you, you know, when you bowl these kind of wickets, you almost try and avoid the pace on the ball because of that deflection. And these players are so good at deflecting the ball into the stands. And on a regular basis, Tilak Verma is a fantastic player. You know, he's last year of 2020 batting has been fantastic. And, you know, you go back to the last game, Abhishek Sharma was the difference. Now, Tilak Verma, you've got some brilliant left-hand batters at the top of the order, but I do think England are feeding them with the pace on the ball.
Your thoughts on that and just them not being clever to use the conditions?
Well, when you look at Chennai pitch, you know that the spin is going to be a factor. You've seen Indian team using 15 overs of spin, even though they had fast bowling at their disposal, they still preferred to use the spin. England didn't have those kind of options. Now it's on the hindsight. They'll think about, you know, maybe Jamie Orton was that player who they could have replaced with the spin, add a bit of spin. Rehan Ahmed can bat as well a little bit, you know, so that kind of gives them that balance. The one change which they did in Cast was superb. He contributed with the bat, contributed with the ball, and that was a very positive change and the biggest positive for England from this game. There's no doubt about that. But the balance of the playing 11 suiting Indian conditions is something which they have to think hard and act fast, because they're coming close in spite of not playing great cricket. They still gave themselves a great chance of winning the game. So I think going forward in the series with 3 games to go, they will have to act fast now. And already time is running out for them.
Yeah, let's talk about Tilak Varma though. It's not just the knock, Zach. I mean, he played the shots today, he absorbed all the pressure. But the great thing to see was just the maturity. It's like, I've got to hold my head, I've got to hold my wicket, and I've got to ensure that I don't leave it to somebody else. And that's what I think all players are taught, right? That if you are in a commanding position, if you work yourself into a commanding position, ensure that you don't leave it to somebody else. Take your team home.
And playing to the situation. We've seen with Tilak Varma when he was playing in South Africa, he had that blistering 100.
Yeah.
Today, the power play was good in many ways, scoring 59 runs but losing 3 wickets. So understanding of that situation from Tilak Varma was just superb. He changed the gears. He was understanding the situation. Didn't really looking to just dominate through and through. He picked his phases in the game where he was looking to take on the bowlers. Very smart in terms of selecting the options. The other batters were not up to speed with that in today's game. So that's why the run chase was a bit tricky. But Tilak Varma showed a lot of maturity to get the team home.
Yeah, and what about, I think just him, his preferred area is actually behind the wicket, Michael. And there was a lot being fed to him to get his runs there.
Yeah, that's even more the reason why I'm baffled by this pace-on motion that England are delivering when you've got a player that does like to score behind the wicket, and generally when you've got players that are trying to deflect the ball and score behind the keeper or down the fine leg or down to third man, you take pace off to give them that not the option to just deflect. I mean, he's a wonderful player, and I totally agree with what Zach said. He played the situation and the right ball at the right time to attack, to hold his nerve throughout the whole inning where there was some poor options by a number of the Indian batters today. That I don't think India will bat any worse than they did today. They've got over the line by one individual brilliant inning. But that's really where I look at England and think there was a massive opportunity for England to win today, because I don't think India played great. I don't think they were quite as good as they were in the first game, and they gave England a chance or two, and England, unfortunately, just weren't quite good enough to take them.
Let's actually call a spade like Michael is. At the halfway mark when we went on Combox, India was 79 for 5.
Yep.
At that point in time, you have to say that the first 10 actually belonged to England, and there was some below par batting from the Indians.
It did. That time the game was more tilted in England's favour. There's no doubt about that. Even Washington Sundar, when he got out, after that, Akshar losing his wicket, the pressure was on. And that's where you have to give a lot of credit to Tilak, that he absorbed that pressure, and especially those nudges in the mid-wicket area of the square leg, those runs where he was looking to rotate the strike. He was smart in pushing the fielders and the non-striker for twos.
Yeah.
So that is something which tells you that he was completely in tune with what's happening or what he wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
And that's where his maturity and his approach needs to be credited.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to say, an apology to Ravi Bishnoi, actually, because I had said that India may just today have 3 number 11s. Ravi Bishnoi did not bat like a number 11 today, Michael Vaughan. He batted proper. I think that even Tilak Varma was underestimating him by not taking that single. And then suddenly our boy whips out a couple of boundaries.
Yeah, the whip through mid-wicket off Bryden Cast, that was a big play in the game. Then he gets one away off Liam Livingstone, a little bit squirty down to that wide third region, but he held his nerve, and I think he's getting a nice conversation from his partner at the other end, who was the coolest cookie in town. He just had the composure and the calmness to play exactly the right innings. But you look at that Arshdeep Singh's shot to Adil Rashid, that was a gift to England. I thought a number of the early dismissals from India was just poor play and poor thinking with the fields that England had set, and they were almost just playing into England's hands. And as I said before, I don't think India will bat any worse than that. So England are going to have to raise their standard once again. And, they batted okay at times. They went ultra aggressive. That's the way they're going to be playing. But it's just the combinations with the ball in hand, all this pace on. I'll keep beating the drum. It's not going to work in India. You have to take pace off. You have to use your skills with the variations, seam attack, but also you've got to get your spinners into the equation. And if England had had one more spinner tonight, I would have won that game.
Yeah, it's what's coming through from what Michael is saying, Zach, from what you're saying, what we're observing, is the thing that it's a good bunch of players, these England players, right? It's even good thinking, but somehow you're just feeling like the thinking is not optimized, keeping the conditions in mind. And once this team does that, where you go, all right, it's great we have a plan, but our plan needs to have context, and that context is the conditions. Once that comes into alignment, these two teams are very evenly stacked against each other.
And especially on days when you know that spin is going to be a factor. Especially on days when you know you will need minimum 10 overs of spin.
Yeah.
Now, if you get 12, nothing like it. But at least that option should be at your disposal. And I think that's where England have missed a trick, especially on this venue, which the history also suggests that you will have some spin dominance in the game. So from that point of view, you have to make that call, isn't it? Whether you want to just stick to your strength or be a little stubborn and say that okay, maybe just respect the conditions, and go with that change. And if they would have taken that route, maybe things would have been different. Similarly with the batting as well, what I was trying to touch upon in the mid-show, where I was saying that situational awareness, you've hit a six, you've hit a boundary. Now there are other ways of scoring runs as well, and that's the time you actually focus on rotating the strike, get the other guy in, let him take that risk option and see where you land. The bowler also have to adjust in that. These are fine little things which makes a huge difference to the total tally. And that difference is maybe 15-20 runs. And on days like this, that difference is huge. When you've already done 5 wickets in the first 10 overs, add 15 runs to this total, and suddenly everything is looking different.
Actually, we spoke about that in the mid-show, Michael. Even you touched upon it, that just slightly more clever options at certain time could have added another 20 runs, and that could have been the game for England today.
Well, it would have been, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want them to be entertainingly smart. I want them to entertain, but I also want them to use their nous and use their brain and realise that you can't just play one way. You can't set out to go and get 225 in every T20 game, because 180 may be another 160, maybe another 140 on a really bad wicket, may be enough. But if you try and get 225 in every single game, the run the risk that you're going to play so many risky shots that you're going to come 20, 30 under par, whatever that par may be. So it's working out. The game hasn't changed so much that you don't need smart players out in the middle that assess what is a really good par score. And then you get to that par score, and if you get beyond that, you go, that's a bonus. But get to the par score by playing sensibly at times. Yes, being aggressive. Take on the power play. And if you think you can whack it out of the ground, of course you take that option. But there comes a time where you realise that you need one of your top 5 batters, at least, probably your top 4, to bat the innings through. And if you've got one of those top 4 there in the 18th, 19th over, it's amazing how the last 2 overs generally fly to all parts and you get a flourish and you get all the momentum going into the halfway stage. England should have easily got to 185, and if they'd have done that today, they'd have won the game.
It reminds me of a story that Joy Bhattacharya tells us a lot about his time with Kolkata Knight Riders, where he says that Callis was the person who did that job for them, where in the first couple of overs as opener, he would suss out whether it was a 150 pitch or a 170 pitch or a 200 pitch, and that's the message he would send back, and that's how the players would kind of approach the innings. As you've played in so many IPL teams as well, you've been associated with so many. Have you ever seen any player kind of accurately do that?
Well, generally you have a gauge, and that's what you call the par score, isn't it? Yeah. So you're looking at the conditions, looking at the attack. You kind of know that, okay, on this pitch, this is the par score, and then you try and better that.
Yeah.
Now, how do you better that is by having a certain approach. So wickets in hand always helps with that.
Yeah.
And that's how you've been approaching. Now we understand that the T20 game also has evolved from that kind of thought process to being more aggressive in the first 6, setting that platform, and then somehow having that aggressive mindset going through or keeping that tempo through and through. But in that process as well, you still need to achieve that balance, and that's generally the conversations which you have amongst the batting group. So these are the things you learn, and that's what you see from the Indian batting lineup. In the recent past, you've seen that the batsman who is in is looking to carry the innings.
Yeah.
Today it was Tilak Varma. We've spoken about Sanju Samson. We've spoken about Tilak Varma in South Africa when he got
Abhishek
Sharma in the previous game. So I think that's generally the lookout, and that's generally the process which a lot of the teams are following. England trying to be a little different because they're trying to be aggressive through and through. They're saying, okay, 20 overs is not enough time for you to get all out. So, you can just keep on hitting. But maybe that little bit of fine tuning will go a long way in their approach.
I like what Michael says. He'd like them to be entertainingly smart, which also happens to be the tagline of Cricbuzz Live. Little self-congratulatory tone there. Something nobody asked for. But I'll tell you something that was asked for by India and by Tilak Varma was somebody stick around with me. And young Washi Sundar coming into the team today in place of Nitish Kumar Reddy, who was out with a side strain. Washi did exactly that. That partnership was crucial, wasn't it, Michael? Because at that time, India was, doddering at 79 for 5.
Yeah, smart. 38 off 28. That really was where the momentum started to go back towards India. There was that no ball that went for 6, which was a big sway in the game. Two really good strikers of a ball. It was the over from Mark Wood that I think went for 18 that just completely changed the kind of momentum of the whole game and the chase. They're smart. I mean, most teams bat really deep. And they all know how to strike a cricket ball, but it was really down to one player, and it was Tilak Verma who just had that smartness. He had the smartness, he had the awareness, but he also had the boundary hitting ability against the right bowlers at the right time. That's the reason why India won the game.
Yeah, there was that Jofra Archer over. There was the 13th over, Mark Wood, which was 18 runs. But there's also that Jofra Archer over, Zach, which was the over number 16, which went for 19 runs. And that was another game changer because at that point in time, Adil Rashid, let's tell you what he's done around it, because Adil Rashid has bowled the next over for just 1 run. The previous over was bowled by Liam Livingston for 7 runs. Now suddenly the pressure's on, but in the middle, you've got this 19-run over. Because Jofra Archer, I think that there is your underlining of what Michael is saying, is that raw pace is not going to do it because Jofra has been really expensive today.
And that has been the approach. And that's where the smartness comes into play. And maybe that's the smartness which Michael Vaughan is trying to touch upon. It's just the moments in the game you pick, is the options you pick based on the conditions and based on the bowlers. So today it was very clear from Tilak Verma as well that he, or from the Indian batters, that the fast bowlers, they were going to take chances against.
Yeah.
And the spin bowlers, they were okay to absorb at that stage and give respect to Adil Rashid if he's bowling well in good areas, and that really worked nicely. So when you're looking at Mark Wood as well, or you're looking at Jofra, maybe slight bit of understanding with the pace of the pitch and the options batters are looking to take, mid-off being up, even though there were a couple of shots being hit there. So that proactive adjustment as the game is unfolding was also something which was missing. You know, one boundary makes a difference at that stage. Over going for 19 runs instead of 19, if you are able to restrict it to 13, 14, you know, those runs keep getting added, and that is something which England missed when they were defending as well today.
Yeah, but I mean, you talk about, again, I feel like just like the England batting was, you know, you were a little confused with the first innings going, wait a second, was England dominating? Was India dominating? You thought one team was playing badly at one point, you were missing chances. The same thing happened in the first 10 overs when England was bowling, because there was a lot of short-pitched bowling and the short stuff actually ended up getting 4 of the 5 wickets, Michael. So I think the first 10 overs they had a plan, they stuck to the plan and it worked.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it was probably, it was decent thinking, but I think some of the stroke play from the Indian players wasn't quite at the top draws. So
okay.
I wouldn't say you're going to get fortunate that often in Indian conditions to get 5 wickets in the first 10 by bowling that way. I just think India played some iffy shots. I look at the 3 bowlers in terms of Wood, Archer and Jamie Overton. 108 they went for in 9.2 overs. So that's pretty much where the game's been lost for England, that 108 for 9.2 overs when you're only chasing 165. India only really need to play half decent then to win the game. It was a nipper because India didn't bat that well. That's why it came down to the wire, and it took an individual brilliant innings. But I'll just keep banging the drum with that attack on those wickets. You're not going to have a huge amount of success in India, because pace on the ball, how often has it worked in India? Very rarely.
Yeah, see, that's why you should have been here in India, because they would have heard your drum. They're here. You're just really far away. We can't hear your drum from there. But Zach, just rounding off the game, like we were talking about the India batters, leaving aside Tilak Varma. For the other batters, do they have to think about what Michael is saying, just poor shots from them or poor batting from them? Or do you just sideline this as just a bad day? Because otherwise, this batting lineup has been having, 9.9 good days out of 10.
But I think these are the days where you got to really be critical on yourself. And you got to judge how you could have done things differently. And I think shot selection is something which definitely is a question. You're scoring runs at a good pace. 59 runs in the power play tells you a story that the aggression which you're looking at was there. But post that, the shot selection, the short pitch bowling, it's just about that phase and managing that phase, isn't it? So that definitely needs to be discussed and fine-tuned.
We have a question that's come online, Michael, and that's for you, saying England lacking a good finger spinner, a left-arm finger spinner, specifically a left-arm finger spinner. Any you're seeing in domestic cricket, perhaps, who could get a chance? Or is that one of those forgotten art forms in the UK?
We don't have too many. I mean, there's a player that's a very experienced player that's played a little bit for England, Liam Dawson, who is obviously quite a sought-after franchise player around the world. He doesn't play in the IPL, but his numbers are remarkable. And whether his time has gone by, I don't know. I don't speak to the selectors, but on Indian wickets, you need your combinations of all the different slower bowlers. And at the minute, England have two leg spinners. They have a kind of part-timer in Liam Livingstone, who bowls a bit of off-spin, a bit of leg spin. He's better than a part-timer, but to think that we don't have either a left-arm over bowler or a left-arm spinner in the squad tells you that the closet, the selectors feel, is a little bit bare. But I wouldn't rule out, if I was them, Liam Dawson. I just think he's now a cricketer that's so experienced and is an expert in all formats, but particularly white ball cricket. But as I said, I'm not too sure whether they're thinking about him, but they certainly need left-arm over bowlers and left-arm spin bowlers in the one-day team.
Isn't Liam Dawson in the SA20 right now? I think I saw him in action a couple of days ago. Yeah, we'll just figure out which team is. I think I saw him in action a couple of days ago. So yeah, well, there's your answer. Any changes you think coming in for India now in the next game? Because you see, I'm going to ask this question again, Zach. You know the question. It's the Mohammad Shami question. he's sitting there, right? The next game, I think, is in Rajkot. Rajkot's not going to, Well, you don't want to be a bowler in Rajkot anyway, right?
Well, Shami has not been playing cricket for a while now, so he's coming off injury. And if you're looking at how Indian team is preparing for the Champions Trophy also, then you need some game time under Shami's belt. So that is something which they'll have to think of. Conditions-based call maybe, but Eden Gardens did provide some assistance to seam bowling, so maybe a chance missed there, just to give that balance to this bowling lineup. If the next game allows you to do that, for sure, I think Shami is someone who is a wicket taker, who that can do the damage with the new ball, set that tone for the game. Arshdeep has been fantastic. You just strengthen that with bringing in Shami for sure.
But Rajkot's going to be a road, right? That's always a road, isn't it? It's like playing on the highway.
Supposedly.
So you never know. England's go home, go big or go home might come good there, right? That's a 225 kind of pitch for sure, Michael. So you don't want them to hear your drum for the next game. Go for 225. Go for it.
Go for it. By all accounts, and every single time you go out to playing T20 cricket, but then realise quite soon if it's not possible to be smart enough to get that par and beyond score. Rajkot generally is a 200 plus. The batters will be lining up to strike it. I can't imagine Mohammad Shami will want to make his comeback there, so I think we might have to wait a game or so before he comes back into the side. Maybe India will look to go 3-0 up and then bring in Mohammad Shami, but England surely have to look at another spin option. That's the only change I've been making.
Yeah. So who would you bring him in for? I guess, Cas has done too well today to be dropped. So I guess that only leaves Overton.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go Overton or Wood. Jofra Archie, those two players have played two games and they're only just coming back from injury. So playing 3 games in the space of a week might be something that England look at. But Ray and Ahmed surely has to play, and it'll either be Overton, Wood, or Archer that'll miss out.
Was that the only change
I think
you'd make?
that's the only combination I can think of right now, because they just need to provide that balance.
Yeah.
They have enough seam bowling options. It's just about tweaking a little and getting 10 overs of spin, or at least giving themselves the chance of bowling 10 overs of spin.
And then again, Michael, I come back to the same question. I don't need to actually think, should Jos Buttler open? Because he was out there on the 4th ball anyway.
He's opening anyway, so whether he walks out with a partner at the start of the innings or bats number 3, he's getting out there quite quickly. So he's playing well. I think there's real positives from today from the first game. Brydon Cast has looked a world-class performer since he's come into the England setup. And again, in T20 cricket today, he's shown his worth. Jos Buttler's playing great, so the captain finding his form, whether he's at the top of the order at number 3, I'd prefer him to bat in the first 2. But he's getting out there very quickly anyway. His rhythm and his kind of motion out in the middle is very, very good. So some good positives from the England perspective. And also Yadav Rashid's spin bowling is, something that I heard on commentary Nick Knight say, if you go back from, 2015 when England really ripped up white ball cricket and the way that we thought about white ball cricket in the UK, it's had one constant, and that's Yadav Rashid. He's been the mainstay and the real consistent contributor to this white ball team for a long, long time. So good to see him bowling well again.
Yeah, he was bowling really well. He's probably going to get a sleepless night because of his catching, because after he dropped that Washington Sundar, that was a sitter. I mean, you'd expect Adil Rashid to take that in his sleep 11 times out of 10, drops it, and then I think that was the next over that went for 19, didn't it? I think that's what it was. So, well, yeah, small margins today, but India coming out on top, taking a 2-0 lead in this series, which means that England now back to the wall, need to win the next 3. This team's good enough to do that. It's good enough to challenge India to actually make a play in the next 3 games. So you can pretty much be assured that both the teams are going to come hard at each other in the next game as well. Not as hard, though, as the joy factor question, because nothing comes at you harder than that. And today's question was, which international cricketer made his ODI debut against Scotland in 2009, but could only make his Test debut 9 years later against India? Any guesses?
I think fast bowler from Ireland? Scotland.
It's not Ben Duckett.
Who?
Who, Michael?
Look at the timing.
He's frozen. That's right.
Lag.
I'll tell you what's happened. He put his internet off.
Back.
Oh, there he is. The joy factor question. Let me switch my internet off. What's your guess?
I think it's a really bad guess, but it's not Ben Duckett, is it?
Ben Duckett.
Not sure.
I'll just have you know, both of you are not even in the same zip code.
Really?
Yeah. The answer is...
Joy that got us again.
He just gets us every time. Mohammad Nabi, Afghanistan's maiden Test match. There you go. The president. There you go. It was Mohammad Nabi. That was the answer. And the first person to get the correct answer in, none of us. So it was Parth Narodia. We've got this Hall of Fame here now. And there are some people who keep appearing on it. And Parth is one of them. So... well done, man. You're on the leaderboard, and it's a small group. It's a handful. So well done. Congratulations. Also want to congratulate Michael Vaughan, who got his guess correct for the power play by 1 run. It was 1 run less, and it was mine. I would have had a 2 for 2. 1 run more. That was it. It's just 1 run. No, not 2. 1. Just 1. So congratulations to him. And well, that's it. That's all we have time for. We're going to see you now on Tuesday. That's when the 3rd game is. That's at Rajkot. So we're going to see you then. Big thank you to Michael Vaughan. Thank you for joining us from the UK. Thanks, Michael. A big thank you to Zaheer Khan. Thank you so much. I'm Gaurav Kapur. A big thank you to all of you for being here with us today on Cricbuzz Live. We'll be back with you in a few days. From me, Gaurav Kapur, it's good night.